All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Wall Street Rundown. I'm your co-host Billy. I have Wale with me. What's going on, Wale?
Glad this week is over.
Bro, you mean to tell me you didn't like Elon and Trump going at it? That was
Man, a, a, a very interesting beef with
man.
the most powerful man in the world and the richest man in the world.
I mean, they were just going at it. I mean, they were fighting online. Like that's how crazy it was. I mean, it's like just going at it back to back, back to back. There's some interesting stuff that came out of there, though. I'll be curious to see how they're gonna spin it when it comes to like a lot of the things that either Trump was saying or what's his name was saying, Elon was saying, and all this stuff. But there's just some interesting stuff that came out of that, and I was like, I just don't know how they're gonna say. I don't know how they're gonna spin it. In my opinion, I think they're gonna make up. I think they're gonna make up. I think they're gonna have a phone call together and they're gonna come together and hold hands and sing kumbaya.
So here's my question: Is a lot, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't a lot of not Trump, Elon's other companies like SpaceX and Starlink, don't they have lots of government
Yeah, they have a
contracts?
lot of government cuts. And I think that's one of the things that Trump was floating too. He's like, maybe we should cancel his contract and save some money.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, how can you piss off your almost your like your biggest customer?
Yep, yep. The thing
So,
is, whenever somebody does that, they have leverage, right?
hmm
Got to think about it. Like when somebody does something like that and they're very bold like that, it's not out of nowhere. They have leverage on something. So that's why I said I think they are going to come to the table and talk and hash this thing out because I really, really do believe Elon have some type of leverage on the administration. So they're going to try to work it out. Otherwise, yeah, my man might be dropping some bombs, some more bombs, So you never know. You just never
when
know.
when he pulled the Epstein file,
Bro, I was like, this is it.
I
This
was
is
like, oh, this
done.
is. I was just imagining the Jordan meme where it's like, I took it personal. I took it personal. I was like,
I mean,
dang,
that was very personal though. Like,
yes,
how did we go from talking
yes,
about a bill to like, yeah, you know what? You know why
yeah,
they didn't release this? It's because he's in there. I was like, gee,
yeah.
this man took a low blow. Like, he went all the way down. But I was like, dude, you stupid for saying that anyway. Because it's like, if you knew that's happening, you still put your money behind this guy. Like, come on, what does that say about you? So at the end of the
Exactly,
day,
exactly,
it's like
exactly.
you're
There
not
you
really
go.
doing any favor for yourself by saying that, like.
There you go. There you go.
But anyways, man, S&P 500 finally closed above 6,000 today. This is the first time it closed above 6,000 since February, man. So this was a crazy, crazy move up to the upside. The Dow Jones also gained 1.05% to finish up. They raised the year-to-date losses, so they're basically up now. The Nasdaq was also up 1.2%. And then Russell also was up 1.7%. So we are, I mean, this week ended up being a good week in terms of like the stock moving up and stuff. We had some really good move, closing move the week really, really good. Now, my only cautious is always every time we have a run like this, the following week usually there's a sell-off. So we shall see if this momentum is going to continue to next week or is going to drop off. So I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about this week, man. Like, what are some of the things you think about with all this movement to the upside?
Yeah, the thing for me that I've been paying attention to is not only just looking at the momentum behind the market in general, but also looking at the macroeconomic data. And
Mm-hmm.
so far, nothing has come out to scare the market. So we had the jobs number come out today. People were
Yep.
expecting 125,000. I think we got 139,000.
100,000. Yep.
And unemployment has been sitting at 4.2% consistently. So we're not seeing a spike in unemployment. And because of that, the market has taken that as a good omen. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why haven't we seen a spike in unemployment despite getting lots of information about layoffs? Again, I don't know exactly what it is, but either as people are getting laid off, they're getting severances, and there some people might still be on severances. B, maybe before their severance ends, they're able to find another job, which is good. Or another option that a friend of mine, I think we talked about this a few episodes ago, is that maybe people are transitioning into the gig economy by doing Uber or DoorDash or something else
Yeah.
where their
Yeah.
income is enough to not have to file for unemployment. and therefore they're, kind of making ends meet on that range. So as
Yeah.
long as we don't see a spike in unemployment, we haven't seen a spike in inflation yet. The market is going to continue to take that as a good omen. I'm still not going to ignore those facts that we
Right.
could possibly see that down the road, but for now, the momentum lies with the bulls, and I think this is our second consecutive week. I think if we look at, I'm looking at SPX right now, 1, 2, 3 out of the last 4 weeks, we've been up 3 of those weeks. So
Mhm.
nothing has scared the market yet. So yeah, I think the path of least resistance, at least so far, is higher because again, I just haven't seen anything to really like scare the market. Now I don't know what's going to happen with this debt ceiling. Still watching the bond market because I don't think we're out of the woods there yet.
Right.
But you know, taking everything with a grain of salt as we move forward. But so far, so good. I can't sit here and build a bearish thesis on the market just yet. And we could have a week where we just possibly even consolidate or something like that. But until, we start seeing bad data,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
But
can't be mad at what I'm seeing.
but at the same time, how many times we have seen numbers like this, and then the following month they revise it. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So I don't know, man. I was like, somebody's cooking the numbers. That make no sense to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that again, for me to be cautious about because again, um, but at the same time, I can't sit here and say that I'm bearish. I think I would say that I'm cautiously bullish.
Mhm.
Um, and right now, it looks like we're probably, less than 150 points from all-time high, which
Yep.
was 61.47 on SPX. So
Yep. We're not that
starting,
far.
yeah, starting to push there, starting to push
Mhm.
there. So
Mhm. Now, okay, so let me ask you this then. So if we're talking about like the stock market going up like crazy like this, you know what I mean?
mhm.
I, I keep hearing some people like I keep seeing like a lot of shorts coming into the market. Also, I've been
I
seeing
saw
that.
that. I saw that with
So
hedge
I'm
funds.
kind of curious, like what are people thinking in terms of long term effect for the market? You know what I mean? I mean, we can run for the next year, maybe even next year, maybe even like the following year or two. But I have, I mean, I'm gonna go back to my prediction that I always make right before the presidency ends. I have a prediction 2027 going into 2028, we're probably gonna see some blood in the market. I mean, that's just my prediction. I think as Trump is exiting the office and all that stuff, I think people are gonna finally kind of come to terms with what actually is going on in the stock market and economy as a whole. So, and that takes into account all the tariffs, all the policies. How's that going to affect the country or the economy in the next 2 to 3 years? You know what I mean? So
The,
that's just my
the,
prediction.
the thing that makes me cautious is as this bill is getting passed through Congress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to figure out what it is they're going to do with this bill. The thing that bothers me is what if one of these three rating agencies gives another downgrade, right? Like Standard and Moody's already gave the most recent one.
That,
What's to me as they're looking at the continual increase of debt, the increase of the cost of servicing that debt does because a lot of times when Moody's and Fitch and all these rating agencies drop these, they don't tell you when it's coming. It just kind of
right.
comes out of nowhere.
Yep.
The question I have is what stops them from giving another downgrade to the U.S. debt
Yep.
issue? Because as a whole, it's a snowball effect that is continuing to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, again, I will say this that the U.S. is not going to never not pay their debt. But the solution is either going to be to print more money or to raise more money in the bond market, which is getting more expensive.
Yep.
So that's one thing in the back of my mind that I think of is that this debt issue could prompt another downgrade. It could. When? I don't know. But I always have that in the back of my mind because that's a big issue right now that they're having to always increase the debt ceiling. I mean, they're getting to a point where I think Congress is saying we don't need a debt ceiling. Oh man.
Yeah, they're trying to eliminate it.
Like they're
Can you
trying to say
imagine?
that.
Like that reminds me reading about the whole gold standard, right? When they removed the gold standards and people just it just went wild.
Yeah,
So
people went
now you're gonna
wild.
say we don't really need to. I mean, other thing, it came from like the Democrat too. So it's like it came from Senator, what's her name? I forgot her name is Lindsay something, but it came from her too. That she's like the one that suggests like, hey, maybe we don't need a debt ceiling. So
Hmm.
both
Yeah,
both parties, in my
yeah.
opinion, are
I've
just
always tell people both sides are fiscally irresponsible.
uh,
Like when it comes to fiscal responsibility, it's bad. Now, at the end of the day, you know, the country is saying that that's never going to be a problem. We have the means. The bond market is working well. Other countries want to buy our debt. You know, will it always be like that? I don't know. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, I'm still looking at signals in the bond market for any clues of what could happen. Right now, things look okay,
yeah,
but that's just a complicated problem that as an investor you have to be mindful of, because I will keep saying this again. More money moves in the bond market than in the stock market, and the bond
yeah,
market is way bigger than the stock market. So you can't just ignore those things.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I guess we'll see how that affect the markets if they remove the debt ceiling. I don't know. I think the stock market will go crazy, but I don't know about the economy. You know what I mean? Like I think the stock market will go crazy,
Mhm.
but in terms of the economy, I'm not sure. Let's move on to Tesla, man. Tesla had a horrible day yesterday. I forgot what the number is. I think Elon lost like over $100 billion in values. But it was a crazy, crazy. I think at one point it was like over like 15% drop on Tesla
Yes.
yesterday, on one day in one day. But today we turn around and we have a 3.8% rebound. I mean, it wasn't that big. We kind of stayed inside on the day. Had a lot of crazy stuff happening. The dip buyers kind of came in and all this stuff. But give us your breakdown, man. Like exactly what happened. I mean, we saw the fight. But was that really based on the fight, or there's something else happening within Tesla?
So remember what we said last week, or this week Wednesday, right? That
Mm-hmm.
$1.2 billion of Tesla revenue comes from EV credits.
Right.
So losing those credits, you're basically taking off, call it $1 billion. Now, as far as their total revenue, probably not a big deal, but taking $1.2 billion of credits off their balance sheet is pretty big deal. Now, another thing that you have to think about that people are probably putting in their mind is, okay, if you take away the incentive to buy EVs, that 750,
Right.
$7,500 credit, does the demand also
Right.
drop for EVs? So if you take the credit away, you take away $1.2 billion in revenue, demand drops. They're already having trouble selling cars now because of Elon's reputation. So that could be a domino effect that could show up in future earnings and future revenue.
Right.
That sent the stock tumbling. So the robo taxi thing is gonna have to deliver at this point because
Is there nothing else? What else?
yeah.
What else are they working on in terms of Tesla?
Correct.
What else are they working on?
Exactly. Exactly.
No?
And I will say this. Let's be 100% honest, right? The last earnings report was disgusting.
It was terrible.
The run that the stock had from this last earnings report to 367 was unwarranted if you're looking
Yep.
basically on fundamentals of a company.
Yep.
Like take Elon out the mix, take politics out the mix, take all of the reputation out. If you analyze that earnings report and just look at fundamentals, that was a nasty earnings report.
Yep.
But the stock went from,
I think it
let
was
me
like two
see,
something.
man, from 222
Yep.
pre-earnings to 367,
Yep.
which
Yep.
to me was unwarranted. So I think right now what happened again is just repricing of how
And
companies are looking at
And
Tesla.
that's exactly what I was trying to get to. Is like I think sometimes we think about you got to look beyond the wars on between him and Trump and all this stuff. I mean, the bill been
Correct.
out for a while. We knew the EV thing wasn't in there, but it's
Yep.
like now we got to look beyond those, right? It's like what is actually happening. I think you're right. I think companies and investors are repricing the stock. They're like, you know what, that run wasn't even warranted. We
Mhm.
need to take some profit up and kind of recalculate how the stock is going to be. I
Correct.
think at this
Correct.
number right now, I think that's probably a good place for Tesla. If it goes below that, that's fine. But it's like I think this number right now is good for them. I think for me, this kind of justify the valuation. But it's like that 300 after that stock. I mean, like a horrible report they gave, and then the stock ran like that. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah. So only thing I did not like was I did not like that rejection at the 200 EMA. My stop
Yeah.
loss executed on my leaps yesterday. I think I'm so mad because I think my leap position was up like it's like 55%. I ended up closing it at like 20% because of that drop. So
Damn.
I'm kind of angry about that. But for the most part, um, again, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's doom and gloom for Tesla, because if you just look at the history of when Elon has had his back against the wall, he's always been able
He's
to
always getting back. Yeah.
overcome. So, maybe I get another opportunity for a good entry in Tesla, but yeah, I started to consolidate some positions, and that was the first one to go yesterday. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens, but as far as his other companies are concerned, we're not privy to those investment books or the statements of what's going on with those companies.
Nope.
But again, having a lot of exposure to government contracts and things like that, we'll see how that hurts those valuations. Because at the end of the day, if Mr. Trump is talking about, yeah, we're not going to give you these contracts,
Yeah. Yeah. But
that's not gonna.
I mean, I'm going back to my prediction. I think they're gonna talk this weekend, latest Monday, and the stock is gonna run. That's just my prediction.
I don't know if Mr. Trump is going to take that Epstein comment too lightly, because he's a very egotistical and prideful man. So you come for some stuff like that, and you kind of put me in a group of a pedophile.
I don't know,
I don't know if
man.
that I don't know if
Maybe,
that's I don't know if that's forgivable, to be honest with you.
maybe,
But
maybe he'll bring Elon to his knees. I don't know. Maybe Elon
I
will
don't
come back
know.
and say, "I'm sorry, Mr. Trump. I
Yeah,
didn't mean to
maybe,
say all that."
maybe.
Yeah.
But Elon got the very, very rude awakening of the
Ooh,
nastiness of politics.
ooh, it was bad. It was
Yeah,
bad. It
yeah.
was bad, and I think he felt it too. Like, all
Oh yeah,
right,
he definitely felt it. He definitely
because
felt
today
it.
he didn't really say a lot of stuff about it. So,
No,
yeah.
so I don't. I
But
mean, at this point, after what he said yesterday, what else is there to say?
right, right. The other thing I want
So
to bring up is let's talk a little bit about uh Lululemon. I mean, Lulu dropped almost 20% after they issued a disappointing sales and profit forecast. I mean, they talk about consumers not buying, and then they have price hikes to offset the tariff costs and all this stuff. I mean, if you think about it, they are one of the companies that actually get their product from China and a lot of the Asian countries. So it's like they got hit pretty bad. That drop was insane. Was insane. If you got a
and
put on there,
yeah,
you definitely got paid.
make sure you tell the people about your success today.
I,
Let's just. Billy's very humble, but Billy texted me yesterday and was like Lululemon puts.
I text Wale. I was like, hey,
He said
Lululemon puts,
he said
man.
Lululemon puts, and I was driving, I was in traffic, and I was just like, I'm not in front of my computer. I don't want to
Yeah,
trade blindly, so I was just like, I looked at some contracts. I said, I think I'm gonna pass on this one.
yeah.
And I think Billy said his contracts were up
It
1,500%
was
today.
up 1,500%. And I'm talking about like, so I have there's another friend. She got the 280 put for next week.
Ooh,
Her position went up 1,500% too. So
ooh,
it was, I mean, I'm talking about like crazy money you wake up to. So just to give you guys some context, if you put $100 in, I think the 285 or 280, it was around $100, $115 for those contracts. If you would have put that up, you would have woke up to like $1,500 off $100. I mean, you just made somebody's weekly salary in like overnight. You understand what I'm saying? So
crazy, crazy. But yeah, great call,
that's how crazy that drop was.
great call on that move.
Man, I should have thrown the sink, the kitchen, the house, the kids, everybody in there. I would have been done by now.
Yeah, but Lulu and the crazy thing about Lululemon that makes me a little bit cautious is they tend to cater to a higher end consumer.
Yep.
So if they're seeing troubles with the higher end consumer buying their product,
It's, there's some indication something happening there.
that's an indication that on a retail side, if you got too much exposure to importing from China, that may not necessarily be a good thing. I thought Nike would also be affected today because in the pre-market, when Lululemon announced their earnings, Nike was actually down 3% in the pre-market, but it bounced.
You bounce back. Yep.
And that was a trade that I was looking forward to play puts, and just didn't work out. So
Yeah. It's all good though. I mean, there's always gonna be a play out there. So we're always gonna find something else. let's talk about. I don't know if it's called. Is it SEI? So a
SEI.
solar company. So let's give us
They're
a
not a
breakdown exactly what's going on with that company.
they're not a solar company. I think they're a traditional energy provider. Let me
Yep,
actually
yep,
let me look at my notes, but they're called Solaris Energy Infrastructure. So Barclays today gave them an upgrade and said that this company is poised to break out for a couple reasons. And the main reason why is that they are a provider of power, and their biggest customer segment is data centers.
data center.
So we have been talking about the increase in demand for power
Yep,
for data centers. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. That is going to be a big thing in the future. Now, again, you can get power from different sources. You've got natural gas, you've got wind turbines, you've got solar, you've got nuclear, you've got the grid. There's lots of different ways to provide power to these data centers.
right.
I need to look more into the company. Like I said, I've only done like more of a high level overview. I'm playing the power game through solar. I'm not solar, through nuclear,
Nuclear.
um, which I think is going to be bigger because I think there's going to be more growth in that segment.
Way
But
big.
but I keep trying to tell people that if you're looking at this whole AI race, you have to be tapped into power. I think we talked about NRG.
Yep,
SEI is another one that I will give out there, that has been steadily moving over the last, I think it was a $14 stock back in April. Now we're at $30. So it's almost doubled
yep.
over the last month or two. So any company that's a power provider that, is, to me, has a segment where they provide power for data centers, I think they're going to be continue to have a really good trajectory. So yeah, I think they had a big move on the 22nd of May. Then they had another big move on the 23rd of May. Now Barclays gave them an upgrade and gave them an additional boost. So, and I think
If you
if I'm
look,
not mistaken,
if you look at their quarterly charts, I love their quarterly charts.
let's
Like,
take a look.
because we are closing this quarter, so I'm always looking at like what are this good setup going into next quarter. But the quarterly chart looks nice.
And if I'm not mistaken, if I look at the all-time high for this stock, let's go back
39.03.
3903.
Yep.
So looks like they could be heading back to that direction.
Yep.
So
You look at the quarterly, if you look at the monthly, 2 2 on the month, you did a 3 on the weekly, and yeah, 2 up on the day today. Yeah, I mean, I would say like they definitely trying to get up there again, going back to the all-time high again.
So I've got to do my research on this company, see if it's worth making an investment in. But I keep that is a theme that I consistently keep hearing in this data center story, is that we're going to need power, 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 power,
Yep.
power. So these chips they don't run themselves. So put that on your list of companies to pay attention to moving into the next couple of years. It's definitely SEI.
Yep, yep. The other thing I want to talk about was Palantir, man. I don't know if you guys seen the run on Palantir. I mean, we're gonna have like a pullback a little bit this week, I think. But go look at that chart on Palantir, man. Go look at that yearly. Go look at the past 3 years of Palantir. It's insane. Like that's an insane move. And if you don't know what Palantir does, they do a lot of interesting stuff. I would say they probably are spying on you right now, but they do a lot of interesting things when it comes to like cybersecurity and um, you know, spying and all these different things. They do a lot of stuff, and their biggest contractor is, of course, the United States government. So
Correct.
if you don't know that company, please go do some research on it. I think actually a couple of people who are actually running that company, I want to say that I don't want to say they came from the same company as Elon Musk when they did PayPal. Was it PayPal back in the day? I don't know if it
I
was
want to.
PayPal, one of those when they sold PayPal and all stuff. I think they came from that. So, But it is an interesting stock so far, to say the least. I mean, those charts looks crazy to me. So just want to put it out there in case you were thinking about, what's the next play, what you should be looking at. But their government contracts is like it's going crazy. They might be actually in the AI space a lot more than a lot of the other companies would think about. So just
Yeah,
keep an eye on that one.
yeah. Planeteer looks like it wants to start moving back to those all-time highs.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to Meta. Is it Meta that you sent me? Is that Meta? The power deal that they have?
Yeah, so I know we talked about it Wednesday
Yep.
towards the close that Meta is contracting with Constellation Energy to
Yep.
provide, a 20-year contract worth of nuclear energy for their data centers. I think Microsoft also has a contract with
Whoa,
Constellation.
speaking of Microsoft, did you see it hit all-time high today?
I did not pay attention to Microsoft today.
Dude, go look at Microsoft. I think it hit
Oh,
all-time high today. It passed, yep, all-time high today.
why isn't it coming up? Okay. Yep, 473. Hit it, tapped it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Microsoft. Yeah, Microsoft has actually been on a pretty steady climb over the last, call it 2 weeks or a month, I should say.
Very
Yeah.
clean. Very
Ever
clean.
since ever since it broke over that 448 level,
Yep.
it's been moving slowly but surely. Yeah. And if we continue to look at what has been the outperformer in the market over the last couple of weeks, it's technology stocks that are driving everything at this point.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
I'm not saying that that's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, but we still always like to see broader market participation, but the tech stocks have been doing a lot of the heavy
Yep. They
lifting.
were doing a lot of the work. Yep. I
Been
mean, they were
doing a
kind of
lot.
sleeper for a while. But I think they're coming back right now. RSP actually, the way it closed today, I know you like looking at RSP. The way it
Hmm.
closed today, I didn't like it. It closed at that doji, right? So it's so I don't know where we're gonna go next week from here, but we shall
Yeah.
see.
On the day, it doesn't look too good. The monthly looks good. And then if you look at the weekly close with the bullish three candle that took
Yep.
out last week's high and low. So
Yep.
um, not a bad week for RSP. It did close, even though it did trade below the 200, it did close above it. But we have not gotten back to all-time highs yet on the RSP. So I'll be
Yep.
watching that. But right now, again, like I said, I can't sit here and build a bearish thesis on the market. Like I can't.
You
So
you don't even know what's gonna happen from day to day. Like,
yeah, I can't build a bearish thesis. And the only big catalyst we're gonna get in the pipeline right now, we've got what do we got coming up? June 18th, we got our Fed meeting, and then when do we got our next CPI report? June 12th for PPI, and then we got June 11th for CPI. So that's what next week?
June 11th
Okay.
is next week. Yeah. So CPI
Okay.
is coming on June 11th.
And then PPI is on June
Yep.
12th.
They'll release the CPI for the month of May, and then PPI comes on June 12th. Of course, this one is dealing with like wholesale, all that stuff. So you gotta
Yeah,
keep an eye on that one.
PPI is the producer price index.
Mhm.
Man, I promise you, I feel like we had CPI and PPI. That was
Yeah,
PCE last week.
that was
PCE was
PC.
last week.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. They
PCE
all
was
kind
last.
of come back to back to back. Oh man. The other interesting thing is next week is actually gonna be Apple what they call WWDC,
Oh
Apple
yeah,
Worldwide Developers Conference. So that should be interesting to see if any potential announcement relating to like AI or anything else they're working on, right? So hopefully Apple says something good because they haven't been talking. You know
no,
what I mean? Like Apple
and
has
and
been quiet.
and their whole AI rollout was an air ball, a big air ball. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm going into Apple that conference with the same expectations as I have for the Carter Six.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very low. I have no expectation. No expectation. So
None whatsoever.
for
So
me,
hopefully they come up with
um,
something.
yeah, hopefully they over deliver, but I don't know. I still don't see why the stock price is trading above 200. I still do not look at Apple as an innovative company anymore. An area of resistance, just from a technical standpoint, that they continue to run up against and cannot break through. So if they break above this 204.65 level, which has been a pretty significant level of resistance, maybe they got a chance to start moving higher. But if 204.65 continues to hold as resistance, because they've tapped it a couple times. I think they tapped it on fourth. They tapped it twice. Oh, they tapped it on the fifth, and they tapped it twice today. That level has held as resistance. And then you see this inside shooter close on the 4 hour that doesn't look promising. But if they can gap up above that and trade above it, from a technical standpoint, I think it might do well. But that conference, to me, I think whatever they roll out, I'm not really expecting nothing from them personally.
Yeah.
So
Nothing impressive is looking coming out of that.
yeah,
Uh,
they're not an innovative company anymore by my definition. So
Another thing to keep an eye on is we going into July. You guys gotta remember the temporary reciprocal tariff is will be expiring on July 9th. So keep an eye
mm,
on the market the day before, the week before, or the same week when it's supposed to expire, what the Trump administration is going to say, because any talk about either like this is going in effect or they're going to delay it any farther is going to have a different effect on the market. So just
and
keep an eye on that.
what I'm hearing too is that the negotiations with some countries aren't going too well. Like the Japan negotiations, I'm hearing aren't going too well.
Right, right.
So we'll see if we get another 90-day pause, or if the pause comes off and we don't have any deals. Because remember, we're supposed to be having we had hundreds of deals in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Haven't really heard anything as of lately. It's been kind of quiet. So
But even those
yeah,
those other ones, nobody really care about. Everybody just care about China.
yeah,
Like to
China.
be
But
true.
I also did some digging. The EU is a pretty big trader as an aggregate group.
Mm,
Yeah, as far as imports go, I did some research on that, and there's a lot of movement in the
yeah.
EU with the United States. So they still got to get a deal with them. So to me, I would probably say top three. You're probably looking at actually. Let me give you my top five. You got to look at China. You got to look at the EU.
Yeah.
Probably got to look at Mexico, Canada, and then you got to look at Japan. Those five are the most
Yeah.
important trade partnerships out there that need to be resolved. We'll see if they get resolved. But yeah, yeah, I got to actually let me mark my calendar because knowing me, I might forget. July 9th is when they
July 9th, yeah. That's when it
July
expires.
that's
So
when it expires. Okay.
gotta keep an eye on that because that's definitely gonna we're gonna see what Trump says leading up to that and see what happens with that. But if you and the last thing I want to say is like you see Trump was under pressure the Federal Reserve again to cut rates and stuff. But they are holding the line, man. They are holding the line.
You
Like we're
can't
not
you
doing it.
can't you can't bully Jerome. You cannot bully Jerome. So
Man, what are we gonna do when Jerome leaves? That's the thing. Like when he leaves, whoever's gonna be in there, I hope they make sound decisions, not based on threats and stuff, but based on actual numbers. You know what I mean? So
yeah, because in recent memory for me, I can't remember. I really didn't start paying attention to the Fed until Bernanke was the federal chairman. That's when I really started paying attention to them. And I've never seen any Fed chair worry about having to worry about getting bullied by Congress. This is the
but
first time I've seen that. So we'll see who gets his staff. And the thing is, I think when Trump selects his next person, he gets to personally select who he wants.
mm-hmm.
So we'll see if that person is a little bit more, lenient to
What he says.
what what Trump's agenda is as far as
But
rates go, or if he's going to give him the same type of, stance that Jerome has given over the last couple of
yeah.
months.
But at the end of the day, as a Federal Reserve person, that's your legacy. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Whether the administration fails or not, if the economy fails, guess what? You are gonna get the full blown blame. It's not gonna be the president. It's not gonna be you're gonna be you. So it's like whoever that person is, I think they're probably gonna say, yeah, I'll do what you want, but they're gonna be very cautious because that's literally your legacy.
Yeah.
I
Because
mean,
when people talk about Paul Volcker, they don't talk about the president who was president during
no,
Paul Volcker. They talk about Paul Volcker.
yeah, whatever mistakes he made, whatever
Yeah,
decision he made, like
exactly.
so.
Exactly. Yep.
It's gonna be really hard to get somebody who's just gonna bend and be like, "Oh yes, you said to cut it by 100 basis, I'm gonna go ahead and cut by 100 basis. You know what I mean? Like if you do that, and yeah, they're definitely gonna blame you. And I think that's another thing that Jerome is like, I'm not doing nothing because it's like
Yeah,
if you cut right now, you too late. Or you cut too late, or if he doesn't cut, oh, you never cut. It's like either way, he's gonna get blamed for it. So you might as well
exactly.
play safe, look at the numbers, and be
Yeah.
logical about it.
Because
So
like I keep saying this, the Fed, at least from what they're expecting, right? To me, they're telling themselves inflation is going to show up in the CPI and the PCE data. It will show up. We don't want to cut. It shows up, and then we have to backtrack. That's going to make us look really, really bad.
yeah,
So the easiest thing to do is to hold rates. That's the easiest
easy
thing to
thing. Yep,
do.
yep,
Now, I'll be honest. Let's just say there were no tariffs. I'll be honest. I think they might start cutting.
yep, yep.
They might start cutting if there were no tariffs. So we again, the fact that we haven't seen the inflation data show up the tariffs show up in the inflation data yet, that to me is, I don't know. I'm a
Absolutely.
little I'm a little bit wary about that, but
Hmm.
we've got through April data because I think it came into effect in April. So we got through April data. Now we got to look at May. To me, May, June, July data is going to be important. I think that's going to be very, very important. So we'll see. But then again, we might get another 90-day pause. Who knows?
I am leaning like 90%. We're gonna get, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like there is a GDP report is scheduled for release on Thursday, June 26th at 8:30 a.m. And
Okay.
this will be the third estimate for the first quarter of
For the
2020.
first quarter.
Yep.
Okay. I
So
gotta I gotta flip the
I don't
page
know
on
if the
my
number is going to
calendar.
show up in there either. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
I gotta flip the page on my calendar because I think mine just June 5th. Yeah, that's where my calendar ends. So I'll take a look at that. But yeah,
Yep.
people are saying that the second quarter GDP actually would be pretty good. I think that's what people are expecting.
Okay.
But they think that Q1 was overly negative because of the import um, overflow. And I think
Yep.
Q2 is going to be good because people are not going to be importing as much because they did it all in Q1. So the number to really look at in Q2 will be consumer spending. That
Yep.
will be the number to pay attention to. The import number, to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to really tell you that much.
Okay.
Um, but the consumer spending number is something that we definitely need to be paying attention to. But
Yep.
again, for now, 4.2 unemployment, um, no noticeable changes in inflation. I
Yep.
think we could be seeing all-time highs over
Yep.
the next couple of months.
Yep. Yep. I think going to the summer, going to like late summer, I think we're definitely going to probably see
Yeah.
some crazy numbers.
Granted, we don't have any big headlines that
Yep.
spook the market because
Yep.
obviously, if that drops, forget what your charts are telling you.
Yep. 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 The other thing that I was gonna say is Trump is now paying attention to the markets. He's like, oh, all time high, things look nice. You know what I mean? So I think now he's like probably paying more attention to the stock market now because before, remember, he's like, oh, this is not my stock market. This is Biden's stock market. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So now that it's moving a lot higher, I think he's taking responsible, not responsible, but he's taking ownership to it. So I hope that means that he'll be saying some good news going forward. None of this crazy stuff anymore.
And I'll also say this when I look at the tariff and the trade deals that are kind of going on. Other countries, in my opinion, are starting to realize that they have more leverage than they think they do
Yep.
because Japan isn't budging on the trade deal, that they're not budging. And I think that the leverage that Japan has on the US, Japan, I think, holds the most US bonds. They're the
Mm-hmm.
biggest owner of US bonds now. So, what I think other countries are probably doing is if they're picking up US bonds, right, and they're holding those bonds as collateral in the
Mm.
trade negotiation, that might tilt the scales more their way than what the
Yeah.
US wants. Because
Yeah.
again, I go back to what happened with when Trump had to back down on some of those tariffs. A lot of it had to do with what was going on in the bond market. I think other countries were just kind of like, you know what, you want to threaten us? Okay, we're going to dump your bonds in the open market and see
Yep.
what happens to
And
rates.
they did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm starting to think that some of these other countries who own U.S. treasuries are telling the U.S. like, I know this is what you want, but here's what we want. And if you
Yeah.
don't give us what we want, or at least meet us in the middle, we gonna mess up your
We're
treasury
gonna mess it.
market.
Yeah, we're gonna mess it up. That is kind of scary though, man. It's like
It is. It
how you
is.
how you gonna bully somebody who owns your debt? Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yep. Yep.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And because you're in such a big hole on your spending, you have to continue. You have to be able to issue debt.
You should debt. Yeah.
You have to be able to issue
Yeah.
debt.
Yeah.
So if like I said, I really wonder what would happen if Japan really went out there and said, we're just going to dump like a couple $100 billion of U.S. debt into the market.
Yeah.
Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That's ooh, that'll be that might bring us back down again. So
Because if I'm a country, I know you have to issue debt.
yeah.
I know you have to issue debt. You can't just sit there and be like, we're not going to issue debt. No, you have to. You are at the mercy of other countries.
Yeah.
So if I got debt, right, that I bought years ago when rates were low, and I just want to dump them, I can always go back when you have your next auction. I can always buy more debt from you
Right more.
because
Yeah.
you have to issue it.
Yeah. Because you want the money. You need the money.
You need the money. You need the money.
Hmm.
So yeah, I am. I think that the tactic that Congress has to use in these trade negotiations is gonna have to change, mainly because they've seen what other countries can do.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep. Well, it'll be curious to see what kind of deal comes with these countries, man, because we need it. We need it right now. So we shall see. Going into next week, man. Any advice? Any last minute um pointers for going to next week? What you should look for and all that good stuff. I know we talked a little bit about some of the catalysts for next week, but any advice?
yeah, we got PCE and we've got I said PCE, CPI and PPI next week. Obviously, I think every Thursday we have the unemployment claims numbers that we get every Thursday.
Yeah.
But as far as any pointers go, to be honest with you, I don't really have anything new to talk about. I will say this though, as far as yeah, I think we talked about this earlier. As far as the whole AI story is concerned, do your research on power providers. I've given you a couple names to think about. Um, I think from a non-nuclear standpoint, I think NRG, and I need to do more research on SEI now because that popped up on my radar today, and I heard them talking about it on the news as well. But SIE is a company that I'm going to start paying a little attention to because a stock doesn't double in a month for nothing. It just doesn't. So got to look at who's buying, what those catalysts are, and all that stuff. But now that I know that their biggest customer is data centers, then I need to do more
More
research on
research on
their
that one.
on their
Yep.
business. Yeah. So because we all know that demand is high and will only increase because of what we're seeing
For
with
nuclear.
with nuclear and what we're seeing with data centers. I just need one of the questions I have is that, are they a domestic provider only or do they have any international exposure where because you're hearing countries like, the UAE, um, Syria and other countries in the Middle East are thinking about building data centers now. So if there are US companies that are going to start getting those contracts,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely something to pay attention to.
All right,
So
y'all. I mean, that's gonna be interesting to see how the whole data center works. Because it's like I know we've been talking about a lot about nuclear energy, but I think for the short term, before nuclear energy can take a place of that, I think SEI actually gonna be I honestly think it's gonna be a short term good case for them to get into data center to hold the line until nuclear becomes a reality for a lot of those companies. So
yeah. Most of these nuclear reactors, the SMR reactors, are not operational yet. So
Right.
again, if you're looking at getting into the whole data center nuclear energy investment, you got to understand that's a long timeline trajectory. I mean, just the fact that Facebook and Microsoft are signing contracts that extend more than 10 years, that just
Mhm.
tells you how long this is going to take to play out. So, if you're not a patient investor and you're looking for a quick buck, probably not something that you want to invest in.
Right.
But if you're
Right.
someone who is patient and is willing to wait it out, or someone who got in last year before everybody started talking about it like we did, then you're probably in a good place. So,
Thanks.
um, yeah, got to be patient with this one. So I'm just waiting for Aklo to hit a new high of $60. That's what I'm waiting on.
Man,
We
did
got
we?
we got close, but
We
we
got
got
really close.
we got really close
We
this
had a good
weekend.
move today. We had a really good move to the upside today.
So yeah, we're back above 50,
Yep.
but every time we start hitting that 59 area, we
We
keep
get
hitting
rejected. Yeah.
resistance. This is the fourth rejection. Actually, let me actually change this
It
back.
might
So
blow. Actually, we have a. Oh yeah, we have a couple of handle. I think it's gonna. Oh, it's gonna blow. It's gonna go
yeah,
past it this time around.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping. I
And
am hoping.
we create a higher load, so I think we're fine.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this thing starts to really gain some legs. We're sitting right. The 44, the 44 area has been a pretty good zone for buyers. So, but yeah, this is one I'm willing to wait out, man. So far, so good. But I want to be real patient with this. And the thing that I'm very, very mad about is that thing went to $17 back in April, and I didn't buy more. Didn't buy more. I just added to my leaps, which
Yeah.
I had to average down on my leaps, which still paid off, but I still feel like I should have bought more shares. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I will say that I will keep hammering this. You're going to keep hearing this from me. The power story is a big piece to the AI fundamental story. It's just a big piece. So don't think that all you got to do is buy Nvidia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
All right, y'all. Well, we are all good for the day. I don't know if there's anything else we need to add, but I will say if you find this helpful, please subscribe. Please
like and
ask you,
subscribe.
yeah, please ask people to subscribe. Go follow us on social media and all that good stuff. And
And
we always giving you guys some good stuff, man. I'm telling you.
and I'll say this: if you listen to our episode on Wednesday, we told you that Tesla looked bearish.
Yep.
We
Yep.
told you.
Looked at the
We
week chart
gave
and we
that
told
to you.
you.
We said Tesla looks bearish. And Billy said it. He said if we break below, I think what level was it? I forget the level you gave, but you said if we break below that level,
He's gone.
potential gap fill.
Yep.
And what did we see yesterday?
We see the gap fill.
So,
Yep. It's a crazy drop. If you were in that daily trade on Tesla, you
oh my
probably
God,
at least 3 to 4,000% because that drop was nasty.
that was nasty. I wish I would have caught the whole move. I didn't catch the whole move, but I think somebody in our trading group caught 600% of that move.
Nasty. That's crazy.
Nasty. So,
Yeah.
um,
All right, y'all. Well, you guys have a good weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Wednesday of next week. And yeah, we're gonna be signing off.
all right, everyone, have a
Have a
great
good night.
weekend.